Let's see what Coach Mack Brown has to say after the first practice, Tar Heel Nation. Huddle up.
You don't want none! You don't want none!
Ready, break. What's going on, Tar Heel Nation? It is your favorite North Carolinian, Russ, the Tar Heel. And in this huddle, baby, we're going to talk about Coach Mack Brown's first press conference after the first practice of the 2024 football season. This is something I'm going to be trying to do a little bit more often whenever I get the time. Just kind of break down what Coach Mack Brown is saying within his press conferences, even the coordinators, after the practice, midweek practice, et cetera, et cetera. But this one is kind of interesting because a lot of times these are just full of coach speak. There's not necessarily too much that you can glean from them, but I feel like there was some really good nuggets that we could listen to and take some things from in Coach Mack Brown's post-practice press conference that he had. So without further ado, man, let's listen to what Daddy Mack had to say after the first practice.
I couldn't believe I threw a first pitch into the opening day for the Texas Rangers and the Boston Red Sox, and everybody was so excited about the opening day of baseball. And I never realized how important that was. It's kind of like that with our teams, new team. This is the first time these guys have ever practiced together because we had about 10 or 15 guys come this summer. So it's fun to have everybody back out here, and it was fun. Randy Clements is sick, and he was not able to be out here today. He texted me about 4 times. How's it going? I said, Randy, I'll show you the video. We're good. We are good. But he should be back in a day or two. We're just not really sure. We want to make sure he's healthy.
One of the areas that we're really looking for to see some kind of progress, especially with an unsettled quarterback battle, is the offensive line play. So kind of interesting that Coach Clements is sick today. I think Corey Gaynor and another guy stepped in to try to kind of head the offensive line group. But obviously you want your stinking offensive line coach out there in the first practice. So that's very unfortunate. Hope Coach Clements is doing better and he gets back out there soon.
Popped up yesterday afternoon, in fact. So he'll be back soon. It's great that the analysts and the quality control coaches can coach now legally. It really, really helps us. You think about having a guy like Clyde Christensen who can coach quarterbacks, and he's coached the best quarterbacks in the country.
It's definitely a game changer.
An opportunity to move around. We've got a young guy named Caleb Pickerel that coached our offensive line in the bowl game against.
Pickerel, that's the other kid's name that was with Corey Gaynor trying to assist the offensive line in the absence of Coach Clements. But, yeah, when these assistants or these analysts, if you will, are able to coach now, it's a game changer. Who knows what would have happened if, Coach Monachino was able to really get in there with the defensive line. Obviously, he was just an analyst, so he's not going to be, where the buck stops, but like he is now. But it would have been interesting to see some of these analysts be able to be a little bit more involved with coaching during games, et cetera, et cetera.
Oregon, when Coach Bicknell and Coach Longo left, so he's helping coach the offensive line with Kyle Fuller, who's an 8-year NFL player, and he played for Randy at Baylor. We've got Corey Gaynor that's coming back. He's going to help us as a volunteer. We've got to get him cleared. But he'll be coming back and helping us as well. And then you've got Ty McKenzie, that's an 8-year NFL player and 8-year NFL coach that's helping Tommy Thigpen with the linebackers. Jimmy Lindsey's been the defensive line coach at Illinois, South Carolina, and LSU. He's helping Ted Monachino up front. So, and there's many more. We've got Eric Mealy, who was the special teams coordinator for Mike Leach at Washington State and at Mississippi State, and he'll be a huge help with our special teams. So the fact that we can add those guys on the field and they weren't coaching for us really, really helps us. And that helps
100%.
the organization today. And your opening day, you want enthusiasm, which you better have. You want to have a good practice, which you better have. I've never had a bad one. If you have a bad one the first day, you should just shut it down and give it up.
Yeah, 100%.
But you want to be organized.
If you ain't excited right now, bro.
This is the most players you'll have on your team. You got all 120 for preseason. You usually have 100, 105. Sometimes they gave you 110. This year they're giving you 120. So it was really, really important that the drills were organized, and we got a lot of work and moved a lot of people around. We've got more depth than we've had since we've been here. Now what we've got to do as coaches is let them separate themselves and figure out.
I was trying to stink and pause it. Good night. I don't think that's coach speak. I'm telling you right now, I think that this is possibly in the two deep, the deepest that North Carolina's been since Mack Brown returned. I mean, when you look over this roster with the secondary, you know, the linebackers got some guys kind of in the weight, you know, maybe a little bit of unproven commodities and everything, but I think that you feel very confident in every single room on this team that there's going to be able to, or at least there's the potential for development. I really believe that this team is really good in the two deep, from the quarterback room all the way down through the offense and defense. Now, you know, special teams, especially the punter, you know, that's another monster in and of itself. We'll talk about that later. But as far as offensively and defensively is concerned, I really do believe that this is the deepest team that Carolina will field since Mack Brown returned.
Which ones we can give the most time and energy to and let them play. We've got three really talented quarterbacks.
Agreed.
We can't play three quarterbacks,
Right.
obviously. So we've got to figure out in a 10-day period or so who gets all the reps headed down toward the Minnesota game. And we've got 5 running backs and 13 receivers.
Deep,
we've got
bro.
a lot of good players. So
3
we've got to figure
quarterbacks,
out
5
who gets
running
those
backs,
snaps
13
as we
receivers.
go through.
It's a lot of people that you got to shuffle in and find out who's the best.
And that what you've got to do is you've got to compete every day at a very high level. Great teams, great players, great coaches cannot have bad days.
Yeah.
When we come out here and say the offense had a bad day at practice, that means you're probably going to be an inconsistent team. And we've had too much of that around here. Defense
100%.
wasn't good today. Well, then you're probably not. There's times you will not be good because your practice is going to simulate how you're going to look in a game. So, and I told them, you've got to take care of your bodies. They're out here running full speed for 2 hours, and they're going to do it for 28 days. They're going to do it again tomorrow night, and then they'll do it the next night. And the ones that aren't taking care of their bodies at a high level with hydration are going to pull. And that's just the way it is.
And we don't need any injuries.
So the best teams are the ones that can compete at a very high level every day, every practice, and stay healthy. And that's what our team has to do to continue to get better. You probably noticed the helmet covers, the protection.
Yeah, everybody's got those on in practice right now.
The kickers and the punters wore those because they're not getting hit, and it's optional for them. The NFL this year has come out with a study that by wearing those in practice, there's a lot fewer concussions. So they are telling their players they have to wear them. So we're telling ours the same. We feel like if the NFL thinks it's that important for them, then we're wearing it. Obviously, they will not wear them in a game, but our players will be required to wear them at every practice. Questions?
Mack, you had so many injuries toward the end of last season. Guys like Elijah, Coat, Bryson. You mentioned at ACC kickoff you're going to try to play more guys, just rotate more guys through. Are you doing anything different in preseason practice to maybe save their bodies up for the actual games?
We are, but we're changing up our numbers of play some, and we're going to protect some guys who have played a whole lot.
He talked about that. You know,
Hampton's already had a lot of hits. How many hits does he need?
100%, right? Big O has had his fair share of carries over the last 2 years, and you don't want to wear your running back down in preseason. So, I mean, obviously, he needs to get some thud. He needs to get popped a couple of times just to kind of get back into the swing of things. But, you know that Big O is durable. You know that he can take a heavy load. So why not get some of these younger cats in there, because you need to develop that depth behind him. That's just the case in point. J.J. Jones, Kobe Pace-Hour, some of these guys that are getting back from injury, which has enabled some of the younger receivers to get a lot more reps throughout the spring, summer, going into fall camp, heading into the season. That's extremely beneficial, because you would imagine that, JJ and Kobe, they're going to be able to pick up right where they left off, right? John Copenhaver, Bryson Nesbitt, these guys, they've played some football. They're not young guys. They're not freshmen or sophomores. They've been there, done that. And you would imagine that they're going to need a little bit less, repetitions in the fall in order to get back to full speed. And you want to keep them healthy, man, because quite frankly, the last couple of years, obviously we all know Tar Heel Nation, ending the season, man, on 1-4 slides, 2-5 slides is unacceptable. And, they keep saying that the talent at the end of the season has gotten better. Maybe that's the biggest culprit. I really don't have a specific answer, but with the amount of snaps that some of these guys are playing, it is very possible that Carolina is just wearing down at the end of the season. So good on Mack. Let's see if he can actually bring that from the practices into game time situations where we're keeping these guys fresh.
In preseason. But the other young backs need a lot of hits. We need to see if Caleb Hood's healthy.
Yep.
Because he looked really good.
Because Caleb is the dude, man, when he's healthy, bro.
He's one of the best running backs in the ACC.
I agree.
We need to look at Darwin Barlow. We've got to look
Caleb is one of the best running backs in the conference when he's healthy.
Devion Goss.
And they said Devion Goss is looking real good.
But we're going to hit more with a lot of the inexperienced players, so they will be more ready to play. And then I also told them tonight that special teams is 1/3 of the game. We talk about it all the time, but somebody says, I don't want to play on special teams, and that's very selfish because they don't want to help our team because that's 1/3 of how we win. So if you're not enthusiastic about special teams, then you probably need to go do something else.
Mack, I was going to say, how deep into practice will you go before you decide on the starting quarterback and give him more reps than the other two guys?
Yeah, Chip, what I've liked in my experience is about 10 days or a week before the start. Let him be the starter so he's comfortable talking to the team as the starter, and also let him talk to you before the game.
Yeah, the starter needs some time, man. He needs some time to be the guy, so I agree. I would say no later than 10 days. I think Drizzy got a week and a half or 2 weeks before that first game at, I think it was Florida A&M, back in 2022 where he was announced as the starting quarterback. And that's pivotal, man. You got to be able to know, okay, I've won the job. Now I can focus on the opponent, and I'm no longer, focused on the guy to my left or my right? So obviously these guys want nothing but success for one another, but they're there to win the quarterback battle, and they're there to compete. Nobody's there to be the backup or the third string quarterback. So the sooner that we can pinpoint who is the guy, at least going into the Minnesota game week 1, the better Carolina will be, the better they will fare, especially if it's between Connor and Max, because these two guys have two very different skill sets. And, Chip Lindsey and Mack Brown are going to have to drastically change the type of offense I think that they're going to really put out there against Minnesota, based off of, it's going to be largely predicated on who's playing quarterback.
I've never been one of those guys that said you'll see it game time. Mark Packers said, I'm supposed to tell you when the huddle breaks in the first game, then you'll know who the starting quarterback is. Well, we don't huddle anymore, so that's kind of hard to do. But I'd like for them to compete at a very high level. They're going to have one of them's going to look good one day, and the other one's going to look better the next day. So if you
consistency
go back and forth every day, then it gets confusing for them. We want to get a body of work. Chip and Clyde Christensen have given them 5 things that they need to be successful at if they're going to take the job. And then in the morning,
goals.
We'll meet
like it
twice tomorrow before we practice. as position groups. They will go through every play in practice with those 5 things and said, this quarterback did these things better today than you did. So coming out of this practice, you did a better job. And we'll see what happens tomorrow night.
So ultimately, you're looking at consistency. Who matches most of those 5 boxes are checked.
It's going to be huge, man. Who's the most consistent?
We have been an inconsistent team. We've won some games we shouldn't have won, and we've lost some games we shouldn't have lost.
Hey, won some games that we shouldn't have won. There's been far more games that North Carolina has lost that they shouldn't have lost than games they won that they shouldn't have won. I'm trying to think of, outside of maybe 2019, South Carolina in game 1 and maybe even Miami in game 2. Somebody correct me if I'm wrong, but how many times has Carolina, aside from maybe those 2 games, how many times in the Mack Brown 2.0 era has North Carolina played upset? I can't think of many, man. I can't think of many. There's been far more times where we've kind of gone into a game expecting to roll somebody and end up losing, which has just derailed our entire season. So definitely consistency is something we need to work on in 2024.
Got to be a consistent team at a high level to get past the 8-9 wins.
Yes.
And that's what I've told him.
And I'm glad that at least he's focused on now getting past 8-9 wins. I've seen a ton of places saying that Carolina over under 7.5. I think with this schedule in place and as deep as this team is, even with the quarterback woes and maybe the questions in the trenches, to not win 8 football games would be a travesty, and we need to stink and scrap everything and just start from scratch. I mean, you would at least got to win 8 football games. So, over under, I'm telling you right now, it would be unbelievably it's just unacceptable, man, for Carolina not to win 8 games, especially with the way that this schedule lines up and as deep as this team is. So, Coach Mack Brown is a Hall of Famer. He's got a national championship at Texas. He's coached some of the best seasons in North Carolina history back in the mid to late 90s before he left. So there's no excuse, man. We expect you to do great things. And, at least he's talking about we got to get past 8-9 win threshold. 100%. We need a double win season, a double-digit win season. And I really believe that this is possibly that season. If it's not, then I think that with the talent on the roster, the schedule, all the variables that are put in place, man, it becomes beyond just, North Carolina can't compete at the highest level. Oh, no, it's coaching. And it starts with Coach Mack Brown.
We've got to press them in practice enough that they cannot have bad days. And then we're going to be more consistent.
Of course, it's loading on me right now. So, while this thing is trying to catch up, I don't know why this is happening, but, that has been Carolina's bugaboo, man, is just being out-coached. And it's crazy because we got a Hall of Famer as the ball coach, and, Carolina's consistently outcoached by lesser competition, man. It's super frustrating. I know it's frustrating to me. I know it's frustrating to all of Tar Heel Nation because the last probably 3 years, going back to Sam Howell's, his junior year where they started number 10 in the country, and yes, there were some questions as far as depth was concerned, et cetera, but, it's been disappointment after disappointment after disappointment in the way that they finished seasons, and some of these games like the South Carolina Bowl game and Sam's last year, like the NC State game last year where they just kind of laid down, rolled over, didn't fight. Those are huge red flags that we need to stink and bring those things down, and we need to send those Carolina blue flags back up, and wave the standard, man, because, it's just, it's completely unacceptable with what we've brought in and what Coach has said, what the standard was, right? We expect more from Coach Mack Brown and the rest of this team. Here we go. All right. Back in business.
It's too soon to tell. Sounds facetious, but you can't play football without pads. So I've told them we will not have a lot of movement. The depth chart will be fluid, but we're not going to have a lot of movement until we get in pads.
Which makes sense.
Because toughness is a huge part of this thing. And
Yeah.
defensive guys were running
And we have not shown a bunch of it.
They don't have pads on. I mean, so you can say, God, he looked great. No, I told him not to hit. I mean, so we've told them, you learn what to do in the first 3 days, and then we'll start figuring out who plays in the fourth practice.
Mack, what are the 5 things for evaluating?
They're different at every position. Quarterback, I'm not going to go through them exactly because I don't have them in front of me, but they would be know the offense backwards and forwards so you can get us in the right play at the right time.
Of course.
Get the ball out of your hands and do not take a quarterback sack because we've had too many of those. It would be accuracy as a passer. It would be the ability to get the ball to the right guy. Don't just throw the deep ball if it's not there. Come down and get the ball to a really good player underneath. You don't get the big play every time,
right.
And take care of the ball. So those would be 5 of the maybe 7 things that we would ask them to do.
Mack, how is Kobe Pacer looking to you? Looks like he's still doing some things on the side with AJ, but he was out here obviously running around, I think, in 7-on-7 and 11-on-11. Like, what, just to your eye, what do you see?
The only player that was really limited today was Timmy Lawson. He had the knee operation in September, October, and that's usually a 9-month. So he can do things, but they don't want him in the contact. Everybody else can be out there doing everything. Freddie did a great job last year managing 3 tight ends that were hurt most of the season and trying to get them to practice enough to play. But Bryson made it through when he probably shouldn't. Gosh, Copenhagen broke 2 or 3 things. And he still ended up playing, which was amazing.
A little bit of toughness, man. Wasn't a lot of that last year.
What we've challenged our coaches to do is, especially Lonnie, Chris Culliver's had a hip that's sore. Kobe's had both feet broken, a bone broken in both feet at one time or the other. So they've got to practice them, but manage their load so they can continue to work, but stay healthy and not overdo and pull them out.
Matt, can you talk a little bit about the collective that you guys have launching in a couple of days and how that might affect things?
Yes, we've been behind. I've talked about that, and we've been way behind. And I think we weren't aligned. To be good in anything, you got to have alignment, you got to have a strategic plan, and you got to follow through with a plan. And we haven't done that. We've got 28 sports that we're all on our own with our own collective, just asking for donations, and that ends up being donor fatigue.
Yeah, he's talked a lot about donor fatigue.
And now we're together. We're working with the Rams Club because that got confusing early about what donations should go to the Rams Club, what should go to which collective, what's a tax write-off. I mean, there's a lot of learning process here, and you got to navigate this thing through really difficult waters. Now everything's going to go to one collective. People are going to be able, the way I understand it, without getting into detail before it's launched, they're going to be able to designate where they want their funds to go. And
which I like that. Quite frankly, the sports that I care about at Carolina, and this is just me, football, basketball, and then a very distant third would be baseball. So if you said, hey, Russ, where do you want your funds to go when you donate to the University of North Carolina? I want my funds personally, and this is going to shock a lot of people. A lot of you guys know this by now, but I want my funds to go to the football program first and foremost. And then secondly, after that, I want them to go to the basketball program. So I'm glad that we're able to do that as opposed to just, throwing our money in the pot, and then the next thing you know, and I guess, in a roundabout way, when you put that money in there and it goes to this place, well, it couldn't do that if there wasn't X amount of money in the first place. So your money's going to go to where it needs to go eventually anyway. But I like knowing that my dollars or whatever I send in, that's going to the program that I care about, specifically men's basketball, men's football, and a very distant third, the baseball team.
It's going to be a lot better for all of us. And then who knows what's going to happen with the lawsuit, with the revenue sharing. What's going to happen with Title IX, what's going to happen with the amount of money that each school is going to have to come up with that they haven't. How will that money be divided? Between now and next August, there are a lot of things that have to be decided that are changing with NIL.
Mack, I was going to ask you, since we're talking about money, the ACC was talking about the Success Initiative, the fact that a school could really enhance its financial picture with wins in the major sports. Considering there's been so much discussion about you could be $10 million behind an SEC school or whatever as these TV contracts escalate, like how vital do you think that is? And do you think it's something that, for all the talk of equitable distribution in conferences, may be something we see more, not just in the ACC?
I think, Aaron, is if we go back and look at it, when we were at Texas, they did that to keep the Big 12 together. We had the Longhorn Network, which was different, but then the money was different. The TV was a little bit different. And I'm not sure. You'd have to ask Bubba and Jim Phillips about that. But I'm hearing some of the same. I think the more you win, the more you deserve.
100%.
And I did feel like that when they were
Pay the
talking
winners,
about the
man.
playoffs, that
Because then you'll start
I
pushing.
think that the ACC and the Big 12 deserve the same amount of money
There's-
as the ACC and the
There's
the
no
Big 10 and the
participation
SEC
trophies,
do.
bro.
Because they were talking about things in the past, we're talking about things in the future. So I was disappointed that we didn't get as much money in the two leagues as the SEC and the Big 10.
How much do you think it can change the bottom line? Do you think? I mean, Jim Phillips is talking about 20, 25 million. If everything has a really great year,
Yeah.
I mean, is it more just the fact that there's an option there that is less about the specific dollars, or do you think the dollars it matters?
Yeah.
Period. What it is.
This will sound like a coaching answer. I'm worried about who our quarterback is. So I'd ask Bubba very honestly and Jim, because they're the ones that are athletics directors' jobs have gotten really hard. They've gotten really difficult now with cost of attendance, with the academic stipend. We're paying for parking for players now. And then on top of that, you've got a collective that's asking for money, and it's taking booster money away from facilities and coaches' salaries and season tickets. And so athletic directors' jobs have gotten really difficult, but I really don't understand enough about it to know exactly where we're headed.
I was going to say, why do you keep doing this? You're in the Hall of Fame. You won all these games.
Why do you keep doing it? You're old.
I don't make the money you do. That's why.
No, but your wife won't let you come home. You told me
Well, I
that
know that,
earlier.
yeah.
So, Sally's here. She don't want me to come home either. So. It's a good question. I've had coaches ask me that in our league. And I said this at the ACC Media Days. I was with Coach Paterno when he was 85 and Coach Bowden when he was 84. And I asked them, what are you doing? They were coaching. I said, that's going to be the craziest thing I've ever heard in my life. And Coach Paterno said, I got 17 grandkids and no hobbies. So I don't have anything to do. In fact, he said, I don't want to hang out with those grandkids every day for 12 hours or something. And Sally said, do you even know their names? And he said, yeah. And Sue was behind him, Paterno, and she said, he really doesn't. He knew Joe. So that was one that he got right. And then I asked Coach Bowden, and it was very interesting. Coach Bowden said, the day that I quit coaching, the next significant day of my life will be the day that I'm buried. And, you know, the thing that you all have and the thing that I have is a purpose. And we like what we do. And you get up every morning with something you've done your whole life. I've done this. Somebody was asking me today, this is my 37th camp as a head coach. I would not know what to do next year if I didn't have this. I don't know what I'd do. I'd be walking out in the street looking for something to do on opening day, and I love these kids. And it sounds like a coach speak again, but every time I get mad at the NCAA or North Carolina or collectives, or I go eat lunch with them, and they're asking me questions, and they're wanting to know about this and that. And I said, I got a purpose. So that's really, and I love the game of football. And I've been involved with it my whole life for longer than 50 years because I played before I coached. And we've got some things we got to fix. And I came back and promised North Carolina I'd try to make them relevant again. We are relevant. But I don't want to just run off when things are a mess. I'd like for things to get settled and feel really good about where we are before I start doing something else.
I think that's an interesting little take by Coach Mack Brown, right? So he's telling you that he still enjoys coaching. He loves having an effect on these kids' lives. And that's all well and great. You know, I know that he's just a tremendous guy. We're talking about the person of Mack Brown. You know, I mean, I think he could run for office in North Carolina and stink it. He'd be a great politician. Right there, if you've listened to multiple Mack Brown interviews, he's got kind of his talking points that kind of fit, that he can fit into these various questions. I think that's the third time I heard the story about Bobby Bowden and Joe Pa. But, you know, it's interesting that he tells, you know, basically Tar Heel Nation that he enjoys this, right? He likes to have a positive impact on these kids' lives. And I think that that's great. I think that that's great. It's great that you can do that. However, the goal is to win football games. And I know that that's not lost on Mack Brown, okay? You know, he talked about making North Carolina relevant again. You know, I would say that we're pretty relevant. We've, you know, won 6 or more football games every year that he's been here. So, you know, I would say that obviously that's a jump up from 2017 and 2018 when we won 5 football games in stinking 2 years. However, what kind of program North Carolina is, that should be the very base. So I still feel like, you know, there's room to say, yes, we are relevant, but we still haven't reached our potential. The potential that a lot of us thought, you know, was possible when Coach Mack Brown came back. So as much as I love to hear him talk about the impact that he's having on these kids' lives, and I think he talks about, you know, I've heard him talking about Ty Lee and all the great things at NIL and, you know, all those things. They're great stories, man. They're great stories. But I really want to see more of we got to win football games, man. Like, not just trying to fix things and, hey, I'm trying to figure this out. You know, like a sense of urgency. A sense of urgency, man, because I heard somebody say something about, you know, Coach Mack Brown talking about how he loves to fix things. Well, this is your 37th camp as the head coach. You know, you would think that a lot of these things would be fine-tuned. You know, why are we not finishing? Well, I mean, you've got years and years and years of doing this thing where you should be able to pick from that. And this should be I mean, we should already have a well-defined product here with a lot of, what are they called? Lessons learned, you know, where we're not making these same mistakes where we're faltering down the stretch. So, you know, I love to hear about the positive stuff in the kids' lives and things like that, but I also, you know, it's important to understand also that the name of the game is to win football games, man. And that needs to be, at the end of the day, it needs to be 100% number one. That's why you compete. That's why you compete, man. It's within the confines of the rules of competition, it's to win football games, to represent the university, the state of North Carolina, to help these young men hopefully one day play in the National Football League or obviously get their degree and become successful young men. And so all those things are variables. They're all things that we got to talk about, but I just wish there was a little bit more urgency as far as we got to win football games, man. We got to win football games. So
Going back to the collectives for a moment, I know we've talked about this and just how huge that's been in terms of roster management. How have you been able to balance that while also preparing for the season and also, you know, making sure you're taking time off, going to the mountains and getting that?
Yeah, the roster management's been a little crazy, but what we've had to do is look at a very small pool of guys to stay here. So we've got to get smart guys that want a North Carolina degree. We've got to get some families with money that aren't going to take more money the first time somebody flashes it at them, because
100%.
we've got to get guys that won't back out on us before they sign if somebody loses theirs, they'll come and try to offer ours a bunch of money. But we also have to get young guys like Omarion Hampton and Kamen Rucker.
Could have went
when they're
anywhere.
offered a whole lot of money. Drake
Kamen could have went anywhere.
Josh Downs, they're not going to leave
2
here
years ago, Drake
because they
could have
love
went
it here
anywhere.
So much. So
They wanted to be Tar
It changed
Heels.
who we are as a recruiting group.
Respect.
We have to look very specifically at that group of people that we feel like will want to come here, will not take a lot more money to leave right before they sign or in the second or third year. And right now, we've only had one starter leave. So we've been really, really lucky with that. And we're getting better with our collective, and we're getting I think we'll start being competitive. And who knows for sure what's going to happen next year when the lawsuit gets settled and the money comes back in-house, and it sounds like there will be a certain amount of money for schools, and it'll be more like salary caps. So I think we're going to put some sense into this thing here moving forward pretty soon.
Mack, for this season, Tyler Craft announced he was going to, kind of move into a student coaching, type of role. How did that, kind of come about? I know he obviously had been out here already, but how did that kind of come about to where he would, kind of slide into that role?
Ty Lee has been the most courageous human being I've ever seen over the last 2 years. I think it's been about 2 years. Here's a young guy with stage 4 cancer.
Unbelievable.
He gets some kind of treatment about every week or 2 weeks. And he gets sick. He still comes to every practice. He comes to every meeting. I asked him before I broke the team down, I said, what do you think? He said, we look pretty good. Got a lot of work to do. So that's what I told him. I said, you got a coach over here that just said, you look pretty good, but you got a lot of work to do. And I'm just amazed at how he keeps his head up and stays positive every day. And there have been some really bad reports during his time. Really bad. And then he comes and keeps fighting. It gets better. So he just goes back and forth. So I think he really wanted to become a coach, and he'll travel with us, and he'll be at every meeting and every practice. And then he did say, when I get well, I want to come back and play. And he'll be able to do that. So just we hope and pray every night that this thing goes away.
With the process that building offensive line depth is, you've said a couple times you hope to have 9 or think maybe you can get to 9. Is that a goal, or is that possible by the time you guys take off from Minnesota, or is that something that may just kind of gradually occur throughout the course of the season?
It's a good question, Andrew. I think it's a goal for Minnesota. If we're going to play them, then we got to play them. And I've just got to get to a point. I've encouraged them. And to be more fair to our coaches, it sounds like I said we want to play more, and some have. Lonnie's played a lot of receivers at different times, and Larry Porter's always played 2 to 3 running backs, but we haven't had the depth we've got now. Now, some of our depth is really young, but it's very talented.
Yeah.
So we're just going to have to play some young players and go for it. There's out there today.
It's a deeper team.
In the white offensive line, which would be our second group, we had Zach Greenberg at center. We had Aiden Banfield at left guard. So you're starting to look at new guys. Leftwich played both left and right tackle. Ja'Kai Leftwich coming in. So if you've got 5, that's 8 right there if those 3 can play. And then you start looking at some other guys that are competing at a high level. So I think we've got a chance to get to our 8 at least, and maybe 9. And that'd be the first time we've done that in a long time. And then to do that, we're going to have to say, these guys go in the 3rd series.
I know you've only seen him one day. I'm just curious your initial reaction to seeing Zach out there, given where he came from and kind of step right into a totally different level.
Yes.
Talking about the Muhlenberg kid.
And nervous. He snaps well. We haven't watched him yet. They say he can deep snap really well, and he did it in his college. But I watched him all day, and he played guard and center today, and he didn't seem to miss a beat. He didn't seem out of place. He didn't seem nervous. And he's really strong. He's very smart. He's very athletic. So I think that we definitely found a guy that has a chance to be really good at our level that very few people knew about.
You've changed a lot with the culture, the staff over the last couple of years. Did you feel like that things were maybe different at all today to start camp this year?
Yeah, I feel good about every camp. Fans get frustrated with you.
We know, Coach.
You say you think you're going to be good. Well, they don't want you to say you think you're going to be bad. And you want to be good. So that's part of your personality. You hope you're good. You want to be good. You're thinking you're good. You're planning on winning all the games. And I really liked what I saw. Now, I'll go immediately to the office and watch every play. And what you'll find is there are 120 guys running around out here, and some of them are going to play better than I thought they did, and some of them are not going to be as good. And then I'm going to sit there, and we'll have our staff meeting tomorrow after we talk to the team and after they go over the 5 things at every position. And then in their minds, some are going to elevate and some are going to fall down, and then it depends on how you do it. If you tell a guy you're not playing as well and he pouts, and then he's going to be out of here. We just yelled at him about not keeping the locker room and the players' lounge clean. That's like having too many penalties. Pick it up. And I told him, I'm going to tell you one more time, if it's not clean tomorrow, we're going to run as a team till you get real tired.
Let's go, Grandpa.
So we need to cut all that out. We got to cut out penalties, more penalties.
Make them run.
To get more turnovers.
A little toughness about them.
Our offense has played well enough to win. Our defense and special teams haven't, and that's where we got to get better.
Mack, any reason
especially
for
in special
moving
teams and defense.
practices at least tonight as opposed to the morning?
Yes, great point. We had finals all day today and tomorrow.
Summer?
Yes. Yeah. It's the end of summer school. Because we're playing early, we had to start early. We would have had half our team miss practice if we had practiced this morning. So to their credit, too, these kids are out here all day.
That's Ramesses.
At a very, very tough academic school studying, and then they come out here and we have to do this, and then they've got finals again in the morning. So, and we felt like it worked perfectly for us because we could take them into an environment where we have like a pregame meal for Minnesota, practice around 7, which the game's going to be at 7 their time at night.
It's going to be a night game anyway.
Here.
Getting the boys ready for the lights.
The first 2 nights. The third night, we thought we would go again because we have the fourth day is a recovery day, and we didn't want to practice late at night Tuesday and early morning Wednesday. So we felt like a recovery day. Then we'll go back to morning practices. So we get 3. We'll have a scrimmage at night at some point to be like Minnesota, maybe 2 of those. And then we'll go back to our morning workouts.
It's a lot cooler, too.
It is a lot cooler. And we found that they run a lot more, and they're a lot more excited for the first day than any other practice of the year.
Of course.
And if you're not careful, we used to practice 24 periods instead of 16, and then have a bunch of pulls on the third day and wonder why. Well, they got totally exhausted because they're running and they're excited, and they don't have pads on, so everything moves a little faster. So we've learned, let's gradually move into this thing instead of overdo it the first day.
Mack, you sure? Do you, at punter, do you anticipate any sleepless nights there? Not to bring up anything bad.
I thought Tom killed it today. He really punted well.
And that's interesting because I listened to Tommy Ashley and Jason Staples, and both of them alluded to the fact that it was a crap show again. So I guess the Lucas kid and Tom both shanked one into the. I mean, it looked abysmal. And so once again, I think a couple months ago I had alluded to the fact that yes, we have a scholarship punter right now. Should we possibly, put that Notre Dame kid, the kid that was trying to transfer? He's from North Carolina. He's from like Indian Trails, and he was like the #1 punter in the country. And he's trying to transfer out. And Mack said, "Oh well, we'd possibly do a preferred walk-on." And then everybody was up in arms about having 2 punters on scholarship, bro. If your offense and defense is doing well, which I think that we have a good opportunity to do that, and then you can't stinking punt out of your own, from within your own 20-yard line, you keep shanking 25, 30-yard punts, bro, that's not good. And so, I really feel like we had an opportunity to do something in the transfer portal or, even giving somebody else a scholarship, just so we could at least add some depth, like legitimate depth in that room and have a legitimate competition. And, we didn't. And so we're back at Tom, and Coach Mack Brown is saying, hey, I thought that he did some good things today, but Jason Staples and Tommy Ashley both were like, this is still cause for concern. And that is concerning to me. Because, if Drake's not bailing you out all the time, there's going to be instances where we got to play field position. But how do you play field position if you can't flip the field? So that's a cause for concern, man.
Yeah, you always do with punters and kickers. It always makes you nervous. But and the young one, Lucas, he didn't do as well today, but he's really good. We loved him. We can work him out now that we had a camp. And I thought he was really good. And that's his first day in college, and he's nervous.
Which is legitimate.
So I think he'll be much better moving forward. But Tom did not have a good spring. We were all over him, and he knows we aggressively looked for somebody else. But I was really impressed with what he did today. And he's 23, and he's married. He's a year older, so he should be getting Social Security here pretty soon. So
that helps the foot at all.
Yeah, no, but I thought he was good today, and he knew we were watching.
Yeah.
And there's a tremendous amount of pressure on him, but I thought he did really well.
Mack, you were
And he got it off on time. I mean, that's another thing that's really important.
But what do you do? Like, I know that he knows that you're watching, but what do you have in the background that's going to push him? I mean, he kind of knows, hey, I'm the guy, So once again, when you don't go out and get, somebody of the caliber of that kid from Notre Dame or something like that, or, I mean, yeah, you're watching me, but, I mean, who else do you got?
You were talking about the locker room, cleaning the locker room. Is that where the whole team goes in there and cleans it up, or just
Absolutely.
the freshmen? And why
No.
is that important to you? Just
Because
I know you mentioned penalties, but just
little things are important, and
Little
that's
things.
penalties
Like
are
the punting game.
So many of your penalties are pre-snap penalties or post-whistle penalties. They're roughing the passer, they're hitting late, they're shoving somebody, and the others are lining up off sides. It's been illegal motion, false start, lining up in an illegal formation. All of that stuff's lack of discipline. Our kids have got the best academics in the ACC. Why would we ever have any of that? It's just stupid. So we're going to make sure that every little thing, they don't miss a class, they don't miss a study session, they're not late to anything, they park in the right place. They're going to have the cleanest locker room and the cleanest player lounge in the country.
Okay.
And I'm walking through there tomorrow on my way to practice because I told the players, you're a player-led team. I don't want to walk in there and clean it up. So you all get it cleaned up, or you're going to run as a team. We clean it up as a team, or we run as a team. It's your choice. And it will be clean.
Mack, as important as obviously the quarterback position is, you do of course have Marion Hampton in that backfield as well. How much does that, if at all, kind of impact the decision when you're trying to pick between those guys? Of like, all right, well, whoever wins the job does have that back there. Like, how much does that affect?
It's another good question, because when you look at it, what do each one of them do best? And then you've got to make sure you can give each one of them what they do best and still have an offensive line that can work on it enough, because some of it may be a little bit different. So that's our chore as coaches in the next 3 weeks. We've got to do a great job of taking all the talent and narrowing down the talent to who is going to be the best players in the game that we can play. And we've told them we're going to be really hard on you, and you're going to separate. And you're going to do it. Some of you are going to give out. Some of you are going to pull up. Some of you are just going to not play.
And that's what you got to find, bro.
Because you get tired.
You got to find the dogs,
you're
man.
not ready to beat Minnesota.
Hey.
So we've got to do a great job of putting the pressure on them so they can tell us who's ready to do this and who's not. And then we've got to have a perfect plan for them. Even if it's a little bit different with the quarterbacks, we got to have a perfect plan for them that our offensive line can handle moving forward. What you do is you take difference makers. For instance, Omarion Hampton is a difference maker.
100%.
So he needs a certain amount of touches in a game.
100%, bro.
Bryson
He should
Nesbitt
not
is a
have
difference
less than 20 touches a game.
And then you start looking at...
I'd say you put it at 25.
Going to be well.
Carries and
Looking
receptions.
at Nate McCullums, who had a great Minnesota game last year. And he had an outstanding spring. He looked in spring like he did at Minnesota, so hopefully he's back on track. Then you look at J.J. Jones. Those are three guys that have been around a long time. And then you've got the young ones that you've got to figure out which ones are ready to step up. But who are you going to get the ball to? How are you going to get it to them? And how many touches should each one get? Coach Switzer told me a long time ago, don't ever hand it to one or throw it to one that can't score.
Makes sense.
And if you throw it to a slow one, then he's going to be slow. So we've got to figure out who has a chance to score every time they touch it, and they're the ones that need to be in the game and get the ball in their hands. I told Sean McVay, I'm sorry.
I was just going to say, like, kind of almost like a personnel fit, as well, as far as...
Absolutely. I gave a quote to the staff in the staff meeting this afternoon, and I won't get it right, but Sean McVay said, don't waste snaps in games. Well, I told the coaches, don't waste snaps in practice. Don't come out here and just practice to practice. Have a purpose on everything that we do, every drill we do, and every play that we do, because we've got to figure out how to finish. And there's reasons, there's things that we can fix, but we can't just. Coach Bowden said it the best. You keep doing the same things that are mistakes. You keep making the same mistakes. You can't do it. You practice mistakes; they stay mistakes.
You hear from any voices today that surprised you, or maybe somebody that you hadn't heard from?
On the field, it's hard because I just walked off, to be fair. But yeah, I think a guy like Caleb Cost has got a chance to be a really good player. He missed spring, but he could run last year.
He looked good in the bowl game,
really
man.
Good safety. We're better at safety now with Jakeem Harris and Will Hardy, and you've got Stick Lane, and there's another one. Dre Boykins is back. We're better right now than we've been too deep at safety.
Which is interesting.
And
They
one
got
of the
Dre
five
at the
things
safety
we were
and not
talking
at the
about,
star.
Safeties have to be able to tackle in space. If you can't, you're going to lose because.
Be kind of interesting to see if Cost hasn't gotten that star position now that he's healthy again. DeAndre's coming back. If maybe he doesn't end up in one of those safety spots, but I kind of just figured that DeAndre would be the guy that just walked in and took that star position with Huzzy going back out the corner. So that'll be interesting to see how that shakes up.
Puts those best players in space, and we haven't done that very well. Safeties and corners have to be able to play the ball deep, and they have to be able to intercept some balls. So
need some turnovers,
we're better
baby.
at those things than we've been, and we just line up better. The two corners right now are better than we've been. Elijah Huzzy and Marcus Allen. Marcus is bigger, he's stronger, and he's well. And he was skinny. So we've really worked with nutrition and the strength coaches to get him bigger and stronger, and he looked really pretty out there today. And I mean, when I walked by him
Marcus looked
in
pretty.
stretch, and I said, if I'm watching the other team, I said, ooh, man's good looking. So that's just now we got to find some guys behind him. I thought Terrain Stewart looked good today. He's going to be a good football player. He's older. He's mature. We've got Amari Campbell's a good linebacker. Power's really good.
Amari, man. We'll talk about Amari here in a second.
And it's interesting.
In
I'm really
my linebacker
impressed
video.
with a number of those guys. But there's some young ones that jump out. And that's where we're going to have the confidence and guts to just put them in and let them play.
Coach, what have you seen so far from Joshua Harris?
Joshua Harris is, I talked to him today. I think he's 350. He'd like to be 340, and he'll lose 10 in preseason. That's what happens to them. But I love him as a person. He's confident. He's
a good get, man. He's got one season left, bro. He's going to give you everything. He's got to.
And he brings a maturity and some
pretty big
strength
pickup.
And power to that defensive line. So I really like what I see. And you get a guy like that, this is his chance to be an NFL player. That's it. He's at the end here. So he will give us everything he's got because he wants to play at the next level, and this is it.
We good?
Anything else?
There it is, man. Coach Mack Brown in his post-practice, the first practice of, going into fall camp, if you will. And like I said, you got a lot of nuggets in there, man. He talked about the reason why he's still here. Talked about how deep this team is. In the previous years, he's talked about how they've been working on depth. It's not the first time that he's alluded to, hey, you know, at just about every position group, man, we can go at least 2 deep. And so I'm excited about that, man. I really think that that's going to be something that we look back at in 2024 and we're like, man, dude, they played a good amount of people because they could. So it'll be interesting to see all that stuff come to fruition, because it won't be the first time that he said that. It's time that they actually put some of these guys in the stinking game, man. But let me know what you think about Coach Mack Brown's press conference, any of the things that we talked about, man. Comment down in the comment section. If you haven't already, please like, share, and subscribe to the channel. Tar Heels, it's time to huddle up, baby. Almost football season, man. A month away. Carolina goes to Minnesota, man. Cannot stinking wait. And looking forward to bringing you guys more and more content as the football season gets closer. So love you guys, and we'll catch you on the next one, baby.